I have a pretty spicy idea of what I think the Colts should do.
Okay.
So the Colts, just to give you a rundown, they have the 4th overall pick, the 35th. They have their 3rd. They have 2 fourths, 2 fifths, and a 7th. And we've talked about this on the show extensively since Andrew Luck retired. What do they need? Quarterback. What do they not have? Quarterback. So they have the 4th overall pick. The Chicago Bears are taking offers for the number 1 overall pick. And I've already called it on the show, so you can look back at the tape. This is what's going to happen because I am the AFC South Whisperer. They take the 4th overall pick. They give them a 3rd round pick this year as well, and the next year's first. And they say, hey, you know what? Chicago, I like what you're doing there. Good luck with Justin Fields. We're going to go up, trade up to the number 1 overall pick, and we're going to take Anthony Richardson. Anthony Richardson, he's had a bunch of hype. There's been a lot of great tape on him. He's mobile. He is a bit of a project, but they have somebody that they're paying $35 million to next year that they have to start, and Matt Ryan. So you have Matt Ryan. He's a veteran. You're in a rebuild. We already know you're in a rebuild. So go out there, trade up for the number 1 overall pick, take someone like an Anthony Richardson. You can go Bryce Young or CJ Stroud if you want, but I do think Anthony Richardson has a higher ceiling than both of them. You go out and get your quarterback, and then you have them sit behind Matt Ryan. Matt Ryan is, he had a bad season last year, but he's more than capable of winning some games.
Is he?
And then, yes.
Do you believe that?
Some games, sure.
Like against who? The Texans?
Games.
Okay.
Hey, if I'm saying he can win some games, I'm saying he can win some games.
Like 3.
He can win.
If you start him the whole year, you're going to win 3 games.
How many games was 3 games, though? Some.
It's some games. Yeah.
So that's the first thing. And then the second thing, which has been a problem for them for a while, they need another wide receiver. Because Michael Pittman's nice, but honestly, if I'm the Colts, you have enough cap space, go out and sign one. Just sign a wide receiver. There's not a lot of game-changing wide receivers, but if you had Michael Pittman, Alex Pierce, and say someone like a Juju, okay, that's nice. I don't think Juju would ever sign with the Colts, but maybe.
If you give him a bag, yeah.
And then some of your free agents, you should sign Bobby Okereke. I think Bobby Okereke is a nice person on that team. Also, played college. He played college with my roommate in college. You're most likely going to have to free up some cap space. Maybe you cut Kenny Moore. Maybe you cut DeForest Buckner. But I think your main objective for this offseason is to stop making the mistake you've made for the last, what feels like a decade, and go after the number 1 overall pick and draft your quarterback, whether it be Anthony Richardson, CJ Stroud, or Bryce Young, and to rub it into the Texans' face. So what if the Texans want Anthony Richardson? And they're not going to get him now because they're stupid. So I think the Colts are going to trade up. They make the most sense. The other team in the division, the Titans, they don't have the capital to do it or the cap space. I think the Colts make the most sense for that, trading up for that pick.
Yeah, definitely. I see the Colts trading up for that pick. Do I see them signing Juju? That's a possibility, but the realistic signing at wide receiver I think they're going to do is probably McCole Hardman. Just makes a lot more sense for the Colts because they need a fast guy who can make big plays and they can do some end arounds. McCole Hardman is kind of over with the Chiefs. You have Sky Moore, you have Kadarius Toney, who are both McCole Hardman except better, and they're both good at football, and they actually showed up in the Super Bowl, unlike McCole Hardman has in the past few years. So I feel like getting him, I would say the best opportunity you have of getting a really good number 1 or number 2 receiver is Brandon Cooks. However, the Texans are in your division, so they're probably not going to trade him in division. So I think you have to go wide receiver in the draft, and then I think you trade up for the number 1 pick. It's just how much the Colts are willing to give up, but Jim Irsay seems like he has his heart set on doing that. And then the question is, my problem with the Colts is I feel like they always have one of the most talented defenses in the league, but they just never have that it factor. So I feel like for the Colts, the player that they should really target who can ignite a fire under that team is you either go out and get Levante David or Jesse Bates just for the leadership quality, because Levante David, Jesse Bates, 2 of the leaders on Tampa Bay and Cincinnati when they got to the Super Bowl, they were the leaders of those 2 defenses. So I feel like you really have to go out there and just get a player who's going to get it done. I know your best player on defense has had some injury issues, but need a better pass rush to get after the quarterback. And then overall, I think you have good pieces on defense, but for the Colts, it's always quarterback, wide receiver. And then you even saw last year hints of Chris Ballard not wanting to go out and get a new receiver because he was like, see what happens every time I go get a receiver, my offensive line starts to suffer because I'm not constantly buffering my offensive line picks each and every year. I'm like, maybe your offensive line sucks because you're starting Matt Ryan, who can't move. Like, if you get a young quarterback who can move, your offensive line is still going to be just fine. Like, Quentin Nelson is still a dog, and he's still out there moving people out of the way. Or how about you don't start Sam Etlinger? Maybe that's why your offensive line is horrible. Or Nick Foles also can't move.
Yeah.
So it's like the fact that your offensive line is the hole you need to address. Go out there, sign some depth, but your draft has to be focused on getting big, fast playmakers at receivers, and then going out and trading up and getting your quarterback. This year, I feel like is also a good year to trade Jonathan Taylor, and I think that should be on the Colts list because he still has some value where teams will take a chance on him, but is he going to help you get to the next level is really a decision you have to make. If you see a running back in the draft that you like, now's the time to take a running back, get a solid backup for Jonathan Taylor. If that guy shows some promise in the preseason, maybe trade Jonathan Taylor during preseason or week 1, 2, 3 if you get a good replacement for him. Just because he's a little bit older, he deserves to get paid. And I feel like when players deserve to get paid, they should go to a team that is going to want them and is going to pay for them. And I feel like one team that could use a really good running back, or at least an upgrade at running back, is the Cowboys move on from Ezekiel Elliott and they plug him in with Jonathan Taylor and get that contract off the books and then turn around and then pay Jonathan Taylor. That's a great fit for me. That's a good trade pair.
So I see the vision, but I disagree with trading Jonathan Taylor.
Okay.
Jonathan Taylor's only 24. He's still young. He had the injuries last year, but this was the first year he had injuries. And he's only 1 year removed outside of this past year where he was the best running back in football. So I definitely think I'm looking at it from my team where they get Anthony Richardson,
right?
Someone who's mobile, explosive, running the football. Him and paired with Jonathan Taylor just seems way too exciting to me. And they don't have to pay him for another year yet. They got another year to take his talent. And then maybe the 5th year, they're going to pick up his 5th year option. It's inevitable.
Yeah.
And then maybe I think trading him now would be 1 year too early. If you were to trade him. I don't know if necessarily you should.
Yeah, I think it's time to do just what the Titans did when they drafted Derrick Henry when they had DeMarco Murray. It's like time to kind of look ahead and try and get a good backup running back. But Colts need a tight end, really good number 1 wide receiver, because Alec Pierce and Michael Pittman as your 2 and your 3, pretty solid core. And if Jonathan Taylor can get back to himself and you get a legitimate quarterback there, that team's going to be pretty dangerous. I am curious to see, though, how Rich Gannon performs as the head coach, because another guy we're unsure about. Shane Steichen. Yeah, Rich Gannon's the guy in Arizona. I know they're both from Philadelphia, though, so it's like interested to see how he is as a head coach, and if he's kind of the same as Frank Reich was. But for me, they really need just that guy who's going to take the team to the next level and actually make it imprint and hold players accountable, get them motivated, and just not be Frank Reich and just not be a low energy guy. The Colts really need high energy and youth right now, especially at receiver and quarterback.
Yeah, I want to see how Shane Steichen can cooperate with another mobile quarterback, which any of those top 3 quarterbacks that are on the board when they trade up and get that quarterback, I think is going to be an improvement from what they currently have.
Right.
I feel like Shane Steichen, he's better with doing like those option plays, those end arounds. And I feel like they're not going to be able to do that with any quarterback that's on their roster right now.
No.
Not even close. And even if they signed a quarterback, they don't even need to. They already have 2 quarterbacks that are under contract in Nick Foles and Matt Ryan that they can't get rid of with all that dead money. So
yeah,
it's inevitable that they draft him, and there's inevitable that they start him. But I think that it's very important that they incorporate the running game and getting receivers around them.
And what are your odds on the Colts making the right decisions and succeeding in the next 3 years? Do you think it can happen with Shane Steichen and Chris Ballard right now? Or do you think in 2 years we're going to see Chris Ballard and the coach get fired and an entirely new regime in Indy?
I have faith because Chris Ballard is good at building a good team around him. He's good at building O-lines. He's good at having developing talent on defense, and really the only part of Chris Ballard's game that I think maybe Shane Steichen can help with is getting receivers, getting tight ends. The offensive line's already good, so now it's just getting the quarterback. If they give Shane Steichen the keys for the offense, and then Chris Ballard can make the tweaks on defense, and then also the defensive coordinator, of course, I think there's a chance. But I think their window is probably 2-3 years. If they draft the wrong quarterback, there's no way.
Yeah, I mean, if ever there was a team that should hire Rex Ryan as their defensive coordinator, it's the Colts.
Yeah, talk about somebody about Rex Ryan who didn't get the job in Denver. Now he's going to be on ESPN still, which is fine. But I really think that Rex Ryan deserves to be in the NFL again. I don't know why he hasn't the last 7 years. He hasn't been in the NFL since 2016.
Yeah, at that point, it's probably his choice because I definitely think he does deserve another defensive coordinator job, or I don't know if he's at the point in his career where he really isn't interested in coaching again unless he's a head coach because of how successful he was with the Jets and then developing Tyrod Taylor a little bit. He was the one who found Stephon Gilmore and developed him and a lot of the really good players in that Buffalo defense.
That's right.
But yeah, overall, I think the Colts, you just have to get the offense right this year because you always have talent on defense, but the number one killer to a talented defense is a poor offense, and that's what you've had. You need to get a quarterback this year who can actually play quarterback for the next 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 years with your team so you have some consistency because what is more demoralizing if you're a player on that team and then like, oh, we traded for Matt Ryan. You're like, what the fuck? Are we seriously doing this again? Like, imagine, put yourself in that locker room, like Phillip Rivers. Oh, okay, that's kind of cool. Carson Wentz, what? Jacoby Brissett, I don't love that. And then you bring in Phillip Rivers and then Sam Etlinger starting and Nick Foles. It's just a complete disaster. And then you hire an ESPN analyst. So that locker room too just needs a cleansing. Like, all right, let's get some youth and consistency and actually something for us to look forward to instead of just waiting for this year to be over to see what's going to happen in the next season. And I feel like that's really the problem with Indianapolis. It's the players are like, I don't know what's going to be the story next year. I don't have anything to look forward because I don't even know what this team is going to look like or what our crazy owner or a little bit off-putting GM is going to do.